Hey Tere, folks, welcome to my storytelling spot. I'm Mary Nguyen, your guide to old-time yarns, spooky mysteries, and all kinds of tales worth hearing. Pull up a seat for today's story. We're heading back to colonial days, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. Picture this, it's the early days of the colonies. Somewhere around Virginia's Yuchin County, there's a little settlement called Creekmouth, where folks scratch out a living growing corn in the fields. But what really sets them apart? They've got ginkgo trees. Yep, those funny-sounding nuts are their claim to fame. Down here, ginkgo nuts are the talk of the town. A local treasure. The old herbal books swear by 'em. Good for asthma, settling your stomach with a poultice. Even helping with pesky things like frequent trips to the outhouse. They're loaded with good stuff, protein, fats, a bit of starch, and just a pinch of rare minerals that make 'em a healer's goldmine. Now, in this village lives a fella named David Lee. He's no stranger to ginkgo nuts, knows their worth inside and out. Most folks around here double up, growing corn and ginkgo trees, raking in 2 harvests a year like clockwork. But David? He's got a tougher row to hoe. Lost his ma and pa when he was knee-high to a grasshopper, leaving him with just his granddad to lean on. He had to grow up fast. No big fields for the Lees, just a scrappy garden patch out by the hills. To keep food on the table, little David would trail after his granddad, planting ginkgo seeds in that rocky soil. Come next season, when the nuts were ripe, they'd pick 'em, load 'em up, and cart 'em off to town to sell. David could see his granddad wasn't as spry as he used to be. Those old legs were giving out. If it weren't for losing his folks so young, they might have been sitting pretty, enjoying family life by now. Every harvest, David'd tell him, "Granddad, you stay put. I'll handle the picking. Just rest under the tree with a jug of water." And VLL het homtogeter kam noon. Granddad'd watch his hard-working grandson, feeling mighty lucky to have him. He'd crack a big ol' grin, eyes crinkling up like he'd just heard the best joke in the world. So one day, like every year before, David's got to take a heap of ginkgo nuts into town to sell. Ones they'd picked a few days back. It's still dark when he sets out. Granddad tagging along like always. The night before, he'd packed some cornbread rolls to keep him going. Halfway down the trail, the wind kicks up, rustling the leaves something fierce. Dawn's just peeking over the horizon, and David gets this odd feeling. Today's different somehow. Hoping it's nothing bad, he hustles a little faster toward town. By the time they hit town, the place is alive with hawkers. Vendors lined up along the dusty street, shouting their wares. David spies an open spot and claims it, setting down his 2 big baskets of nuts. It's a hot one today. The sun climbs up, barking awaiting in sight. That's when it hits him. No wonder he's late. He's stuck in a sun-soaked corner while the other sellers are kicking back in the shade. It's a ways off from his usual haunt, but he shrugs it off. A spot's a spot, shade or no shade. He's just gotta make it work. Fresh ginkgo nuts, best you'll find. David calls out, sweating under that blazing sun, pushing the haul he'd gathered days before. Right 10 out of nowhere. A woman comes tearing out of an alley, slamming into his stall and sending both baskets tumbling. She spins around, yells, "Sorry," and keeps running lickety-split. But there's trouble on her heels. A couple of rough-looking fellas chasing her down. She doubles back, landing square in front of David again. He's just got his stall patched up when he sees her coming, grabbing his gear to shift spots. No sense sticking around for a brawl. She doesn't even blink, snatches a fistful of his nuts, and chucks them at her pursuers. Whoa, hold up. David grabs her wrist. "I don't even know you. Why are you tossing my nuts like they're rocks?" Before she can answer, 2 big bruisers, looking like hired muscle, catch up and nab here. "Thought you'd get away, you little sneak," they growl. "We bought you fair and square. Kaukt you stealing everdang de." "I didn't steal nothing," she fires back. "I tossed that junk in the trash, thought it was no good. How was I supposed to know the cook wanted it?" "Quit your yapping," one of them snaps, giving her a look that says he's heard enough excuses. Things are heating up. So David steps in. "Hey boys, let's simmer down," he says. "No need to get rowdy. You big lugs picking on one gal ain't exactly sporting." "Who asked you, kid?" one of 'em barks. "Beat it." After that, the guy's eyes slide over to David's stall. A sneaky grin creeping up. "These your nuts?" he asks, all sly-like. "You selling?" "Sure are," David says, keeping it cool. "Graun Müself, verspickete de. The mongrin turns nasty. Well, ain't you a bleeding heart? Tell you what. Hand over those 2 baskets. And this little troublemaker's yours. Boss only got her for chores anyway. She's botched things up enough. Won't miss her if she's gone." David's gut twists. This guy's sharper than a fox in a henhouse. Those baskets? They'd fetch him a fistful of silver. Ginkgo nuts are pure gold for doctoring folks up. He'd slaved over counting on that money to settle down someday. No way he's letting this slide easy. But then he catches her eye. Wide, scared, begging for help without a word. His heart softens, and he sighs. "Fine, take he mutters." Sure enough, the men scoop up the nuts, baskets and all. David turns to the gal. "Look, miss, you've cost me plenty today. But you're free now, so I'm heading home. Let's not run into each other again, all right?" He tips his hat and starts the long walk back, leaving the market behind. To get home, he's got to climb over a ridge. Halfway up. This creepy feeling hits him. Like someone's dogging his steps. He looks back, nothing but trees. Finding a shady patch, he flops down to rest a spell. After nodding off, he blinks awake. And there's a pair of eyes staring right at him. He jumps up, hollering. Only to see it's her. The gal he'd set free that morning. "What in tarnation are you doing tailing me?" David snaps. Still shook from waking up to her staring. "I told you, you're free as a bird now. Go your own way." "That's a fine thing to say," she shoots back, crossing her arms. "I'm just a runaway here at gal. Dodging trouble. Sure, they knocked me around some. But at least I had a roof and a cot. You swapped your nuts for me. And now I've got no place to lay my head. If I don't stick with you, who's left? You don't mind me too much. I could work for you, cook, clean, whatever you need." She lays it out bold as brass, not backing down a lick. "Work for me." David sputters, thrown off. "I'm poorer than a church mouse. I ain't hiring nobody. Quit joshing me, I don't even know your name." "Name's Lily," she says, "calm as you please. My pa passed a while back. And we couldn't scrape together enough for a grave. That's how I ended up sold to the tanner place. Worked there till you got me cut loose today." She shrugs like it's nothing new. But David's still reeling, trying to wrap his head around it. David's itching to shake her off and call it a day. He don't need this headache. But then she mentions being an orphan too. Just like him, down on her luck, no kin to turn to. He feels a pang of pity and caves. "All right, come on then," he mutters. Not saying another word as they trudge back home. When they get there, he spills the whole tale to Grandad. The old man's got a heart bigger than Virginia. "Of course she can stay a bit," he says, no hesitation. Lily don't waste time proving her worth. She's no frill oder. Next thing you know, she's scrubbing floors and frying up supper every day. Lily's cooking? It's like heaven on a plate for Grandad. He scarfs it down and crows about it. "Told you this house needs a woman's touch." Then he gets a twinkle in his eye and turns to her. "My boy David's been pinching pennies for years. Dreaming of a wife. Every fella wants a good gal. What about you? Fancy being my granddaughter-in-law." Lily takes a bite of her own cornbread and says, "I reckon David's all right by me. But he don't seem too keen on me. Can't force that. I'll just keep on as your help, if that's fine." "Well, shoot." Grandad chuckles, giving the table a little smack. "That's an easy fix. I'll play matchmaker myself. You'll see." Lily finishes up and heads to the kitchen to tidy, while David stomps in from the ginkgo patch out back. He plops down at the table, pulling out a scrap of paper to figure his savings. Been stashing away a tidy sum these past 2 years, he says. That mess in town cost me dear. But if the sun keeps shining, I'll have more nuts to sell soon enough. Granddad, David pipes up. I'm thinking I oughta find a wife sooner. Make sure you're taken care of proper. Granddad waves him off with a laugh. You're thick as a brick, boy. There's a fine gal right here. And you're still counting coins for some bride down the road? Keep that up, you'll be gray and lonesome. Open your eyes and see what's in front of you. That gets David thinking. He starts stealing looks at Lily when she ain't watching. She's easy on the eyes. Quick with her hands. Keeps the place neat as a pin. Ain't she just about perfect for a wife? But how's he supposed to make a move? He's chewing on that when Lily comes in with a skillet of food, trips over her own feet, and lands smack in David's lap. Their eyes meet, both turning red as a ripe apple. Granddad covers his face, chuckling. Looks like we're in for a wedding round here. With the old man egging him on, David and Lily tie the knot without a hitch. Folks from all over Creekmouth show up, toasting the happy pair with cider and cheers. Once they're hitched, Granddad hangs up his hat. No more trips to the ginkgo patch for him. He lets David and Lily handle it together, while he takes it easy back at the house. All he's hoping for now is a little one to call him great-granddad. Then he'd leave this world grinning. One blistering hot day, the two head out to the hills, pick a mess of ginkgo nuts, and drag him home, worn out but happy. Lily's plumb tuckered out from the heat. She keels over in a faint. When she stirs, she's clutching her belly, wincing. The town doc rushes over, feels her pulse, and breaks into a big smile. Well, I'll be, congratulations. You're gonna be parents. She needs to rest up, no heavy lifting. Their little family of 3's about to grow to 4. Granddad's wish is coming true. He hollers at the sky. Hey, up there, see this? David's got a young un on the way. And I'm fixing to spoil a great-grandbaby. Come morning, David's ready to haul the latest batch of ginkgo nuts to town. Got a good pile from yesterday's picking. But Lily's dead set on going too. Now hold on, David says, worried. You're in the family way. Doc said just yesterday you've got to take it easy. What if something jostles the baby? They're still honeymooners, though. Stuck tighter than pitch on a pine tree. Lily ain't about to let him go off alone. She's coming, no two ways about it. They're butting heads till Granddad chimes in, waving his hands like a peacemaker. Ah, let her go, David, he says. She's your new wife. You think she's gonna sit home twiddling her thumbs while you're gone? Just watch out for her. Then he fixes Lily with a stern eye. You mind yourself out there, girl. Go slow, don't heft nothing heavy. And rest when you feel peaked, you hear. Lily's nodding like a schoolgirl caught sneaking pie. Grateful Granddad's on her side. David gives up the fight. Lily's coming along, and that's that. Luck's with them, though. They sell every last nut in town. Pocket a jingle of silver. And start the hike home feeling mighty chipper. They're trudging along the ridge trail for a good stretch, when David notices Lily's breathing funny. A little wheezy, like the air's too thick. Sit a spell, he says, pointing to a shady spot. But the second she drops down, the ground buckles under her. She's sliding toward a drop-off faster than a greased pig. Quick as a flash, Lily snags a vine hanging nearby. If she hadn't, she'd be gone over the edge. And David's heart near stops at the thought. He stares at the spot and sees it clear. It's a hunter's trap. Dirt piled over a hollowed-out pit. Right smack on the cliffside. Vines had crept over it, hiding the danger, till it was too late. Some fool must have rigged it for deer or bear. But instead, it's nabbed his wife. David's sweating bullets now. Lily's dangling over that cliff. And she's carrying their baby. He lunges forward, stretching to grab her. But his arms come up short. Can't reach her no matter how he tries. He scrambles, looking around wild-eyed. There's a stick lying close. He snatches it up and holds it out. Grab on, Lily, I'll pull you up. But deep down, he knows it's too puny. It cracks the moment she tugs. And she's still slipping. Her face going white as a sheet. Hang on, darlin'. David yells. I'll be back in a flash. He bolts off down the trail, leaving Lily clinging to that vine. She watches him fade into the trees, his back disappearing as he runs for help. The vine's got thorns. Her hands are torn up, blood trickling down. And she's holding on for dear life. Minutes drag like hours. And finally, her grip gives out. She lets go and tumbles down. When Lily opens her eyes, she's laid out on her own bed back home. She blinks, taking in the room, whispering to herself, "Am I still kicking, or did I cross over?" Then crash. A dish hits the floor beside her. "Lily, thank the Lord you're awake." It's David, hovering there like he's been holding his breath forever. "I thought I'd lost you for good this time." But something feels wrong. Her belly's empty, like a hollowed-out gourd. She grabs David's sleeve, frantic. "Where's our baby? What happened to the little one? Why's my stomach so flat?" David's tough as nails, but his eyes well up, tears spilling over as he looks at her. "The doc said, when you fell, it was too much. The baby's gone, Lily." His voice cracks, and he can't say no more. That news hits Lily like a runaway wagon. She faints again, out cold. When she comes to, the hurt's so deep she can't shake it. Days turn bleak. No more smiles, just a blank stare where her light used to be. Granddad's tore up too, beating himself black and blue inside. "If I hadn't let her go," he keeps thinking. "If I'd made her stay put, we wouldn't be here now. It's on me, all of it." The baby's gone, and Lily's joy went with it. That weight drags Granddad down fast. Before long, he's sick as a dog, eaten up by guilt he can't shake. On his last day, he calls David close and rasps, "My good boy. Looks like I won't get to bounce a great-grandbaby on my knee. But you being here, that's enough for me. I just can't stop thinking about Lily's little one. I'm sorry, son, so sorry." He lets out a sigh that rattles the rafters. And with that, Granddad's gone. David buries Granddad and stumbles home, only to find the house empty. Lily's nowhere in sight. He tears around asking folks, checks with the village elders, pesters old-timers and kids alike in the streets. Nobody's seen her. 3 months crawl by, and there's still no sign of Lily. She's up and vanished like smoke in the wind. David's lost his granddad and now his wife, all in one fell swoop. His heart's breaking clean in two. One day, he's wandering the ridge trails, feeling lower than a snake's belly, when he stumbles past Mercy Chapel up on the hill. The big wooden cross out front catches his eye, and all of a sudden, a calm settles over him. Like the storm in his chest, just quiets down. He steps inside, drops to his knees by the altar, and whispers, "Lord, I'm carrying too much hurt." A preacher nearby, tapping out a hymn on a bench, leans over and says, "You've got to let it go, son. That's the only way to cut loose the knots tying you down." Those words stick with David. He mulls over his life, all the folks he's lost, and how he's been clinging to the pain like a lifeline. Maybe the preacher's right. Maybe joining up here's the way forward. So he signs on at the chapel, throwing himself into the faith. Days start early, up at dawn for prayers, then fetching water with the other fellas, cooking grub, and singing hymns till the sun dips low. Weeks roll by like that, and bit by bit, he feels his soul getting scrubbed clean, the hurt easing up, slow but sure. One afternoon, David's out back of the chapel, and he spots a ginkgo tree, wilted and half dead, looking pitiful. He can't help but think, even a scraggly tree deserves a chance. Same as folks do, using tricks he learned from Granddad. He waters it, mulches it, tends it careful like. Wouldn't you know, in less than a month, that tree's perking up, green as can be. The other chapel boys start ribbing him. "David, you're a regular tree whisperer." And he can't help but crack a smile. He's out tending that ginkgo one day, when a young fella from the chapel runs up, out of breath. "David, someone left this for you at the gate." He hands over a letter, saying, "Up to you if you read it." David squints at the envelope. It's got Lily's handwriting scrawled on it. plain as day. He stares at it a good long while. Fingers trembling. The head preacher, wise as an owl, catches the look in his eye and nods. Right then, another boy trots in with a bundle. David's old clothes. Folded neat. "Son," the preacher says, "I've seen it in you since you got here. Your heart's still tangled up in the world. Take these and go settle your business. If the Lord's still calling, you'll be back." David grabs the bundle, stuffs Lily's letter in his pocket, and hits the trail back home. The chapel ain't far, just over the ridge. Halvvetere, Hetiers opens a letter. Heart thumping like a drum. It reads, "Dearest David, it's been days that feel like years. Come home quick, save me. Your Lily, longing to see you." His blood runs cold. She's in trouble, no doubt about it. He picks up the pace, practically running the last stretch to creek mouth. He gets to the house and spots old man Seth by the fence. A neighbor who's been around forever. David hollers, "Seth." But the old coot don't even turn. Just keeps shuffling along. Maybe he's gone deaf, David figures, and lets it slide. He's got bigger fish to fry. He bursts through the door, calling, "Lily, where you at?" No answer. Then he hears pots clanging in the kitchen. Sure enough, there's Lily, bustling around like she knew he'd show up today. She turns, sees him, and yells, "David, come eat. I've got supper ready." David sits down to a spread that'd make your mouth water. Lily's back at the stove, cooking like old times. His eyes sting as he digs in. Ever since the baby, she hadn't touched a skillet. Now here she is, whipping up a feast. Halfway through, he says, "Lily, your letter begged me to come save you, but you look fine as a fiddle. What's going on?" She laughs soft-like. "Save me from being lonesome, that's what. Granddadsgone. And I couldn't stand rattling around here alone. If I didn't write it desperate, would you have hightailed it back so fast?" David shakes his head. It's a little sneaky, but seeing her smile again, he lets it go. That night, David curls up next to Lily in bed, wrapping an arm around her. "Where'd you run off to all this time?" he asks. "I looked high and low, couldn't find you nowhere." Lily nestles into his shoulder, looking up with those big, soft eyes. "I was a mess, David. Just wandering, trying to clear my head. Don't even know the names of the places I went. Just needed to be alone till I could face things again." He pulls her closer, guilt gnawing at him. "I'm sorry, Lily. I should have got help faster that day on the ridge. It's my fault you fell." Tears spill out. And she hushes him quick. "Ain't your fault, I let go. Wasn't nothing you could have done." She pats his cheek and says, "How about we try again tonight? We're young yet. No reason we can't have another little one somede. What'll we do when we're old with no young uns to chase?" David's eyes light up, hopeful. "You mean it, Lily?" She nods, smiling. Then, quick as a whip, her face twists, and she's glaring at him like he's the devil himself. "What did you say?" she snarls. "Another kid? You forgot how our baby died already? It ain't even been a year. And you're ready to move on, you heartless fool. You call yourself a father? I ain't got a husband like you." She kicks him clean off the bed, and he lands hard on the floor. No blanket, no nothing. Just a cold night ahead. Come sunrise, David sneezing up a storm. Sleeping on the boards'll do that to you. He'd planned to head to the ginkgo patch, pick some nuts to sell like always, figuring they'd need cash to keep going together. But Lily's still fuming. Won't even look at him, much less talk. He decides to lay low a few days. Let her simmer down before he tries anything else. By noon, though, she's back in the kitchen, whipping up a feast fit for a king. And she sidles up to him, all sweet-like. "Sorry, David," she says. "I got riled up last night. Didn't mean to take it out on you. I'll work on being a gentler wife, I promise. You want another young un, we'll have one. Just give me a little time to heal up first. We've got years ahead, right?" David's thrown. This ain't the Lily he knows. She never says sorry. Always stood her ground like a mule. But now she's all soft and reasonable? He nods anyway, figuring it makes sense. They've got time. After lunch, she's off washing dishes. And he steps outside for a breather. There's old Seth shuffling by again. David waves, but the man don't even glance his way. Just keeps on like David's a ghost. Puzzled, David jogs after him. Claps a hand on his shoulder. Seth, what's with you?
Ivy been killing. Don't you hear me?
Seth spins around, eyes wide.
David Lee?
When'd you get back? I didn't hear a thing. Got in yesterday, David says, frowning. Hollered at you from the porch. Thought you'd gone deaf or something. Seth scratches his head. Yesterday? Your place has been empty for months. Cobwebs thick as rope last time I peeked in. You cleaned it up that fast. David grins. Lily took care of it. I didn't have to lift a finger.
Zets feskos peles assa.
Lily? Boy, she's been dead nigh on a month. How's she cleaning anything? David's stomach drops. What are you talking about, Seth? She's been with me since yesterday. Cooked me 2 meals already. Seth backs up, spooked. You ain't seeing things, are you? Lily died right out front your place. Me, Jake from the river, and old man Walt buried her ourselves. We couldn't tell you, 'cause you were gone. Figured you knew and came back to mourn. David's head spinning. If Lily's been dead a month, who's he been eating supper with? I gotta go, he mumbles. And hightails it home. Seth's words ringing in his ears. He eases back into the yard.
Moving slow, eyes sharp.
Something catches his notice. 4 bits of white paper. Stuck in the fence corners like markers. Up close, they're scrawled with odd symbols. He don't know what they mean, but they give him the heebie-jeebies.
He yanks em down quick.
Tucking him in his shirt so Lily don't see. David, you're back. Her voice calls from inside. Sweet as honey. Dishes are done, you hungry? He steps in. Sees her coming toward him. Then freezes. Yelling, stay back you whatever you are. Lily looks baffled. Then dashes to grab a little brass mirror. She gasps at her reflection.
What happened to me?
David's jaw drops. Since he tore down those papers. Her face ain't right no more.
No eyes, no nose, no mood.
Just a blank, smooth slate where it ought to be.
David, don't leave me. She cries.
Voice shaking the walls. A noise rumbles behind her. He squints and sees it. A tiny figure. Clinging to her back like a shadow. Pulling strings he can't figure. That you, our baby. David stammers. Pointing at the thing. The figure glares back. Voice sharp as a blade.
Yeah, I'm your kid.
3 months I had. And you let me go.
Left behind. Turns out, wen Lily lost the baby.
That little soul hit the hereafter mad as a hornet. Wouldn't move on. Wouldn't let go. Slipped past the pearly gates. And came back with a grudge. Found Lily grieving. Twisted her mind to think it was all her fault. Till she ended herself. Now it's got her spirit. Dragging her back to haunt David. And it's out for blood. David bolts for the door. Legs pumping to get out. But it won't budge. That little shadow's locked it tight somehow. The thing on Lily's back cackles. You feel it now, Pa? The hopelessness I felt when you let me slip away? I want you to taste it too. Lily's form, faceless and eerie, starts floating up. Arms outstretched like she's gonna grab him. He's backed into a corner.
Hard hammering. Wen she suddenly freezes. Straining to coke out. David, run.
You're still in there. David gasps.
The shadow screeches.
No way. I've had you locked down. You can't fight me. It's losing its grip though. Lily's will's pushing back. The thing snarls.
Riesing ich her.
And starts conjuring a ball of dark light in the air. Some kind of hex, aimed right at David. Just then, a gust kicks up. And a handful of ginkgo leaves swirl in through the window. An old figure steps out of the breeze. Stooped, weathered, and looking mighty familiar. Sorry, son, the figure rasps. Didn't mean for your little one to turn on you like this. David squints. It's the old-timer he saved that day on the ridge. See, when Lily fell. David had run for help. But he'd stopped to give water to a half-dead stranger first. This fella, lying in the dirt, begging for a sip. One side was his wife and baby in danger. The other a dying man. He'd picked the old-timer, figuring he could save both. By the time he got back with help, Lily was down the cliff. And the baby was lost. That old man wasn't just anybody. He was a spirit tied to the ginkgo trees. A guardian of sorts. Needing water to keep going in his twilight years. David's kindness kept him alive a bit longer. Though he passed not long after. Now, seeing David in a fix. He's back to return the favor. Your boy's got it wrong, he tells the shadow. He didn't abandon you. He was saving me. And he tried his darndest to get back to your ma. If you won't listen, I'll set this right myself. The shadow wails. You're lying, I won't believe it. It's thrashing. Refusing to hear the truth.
10. Out of nowhere. Two tall figures in black and white cloaks pop up. Like reapers straight out of a campfire tale.
They sling chains around the little spirit. Hollering, time's up, back to the other side with you. Kill your pa, and you'll regret it.
No Seekonschauses 10. David steps forward.
Wait, don't hurt him. Let him go, I'll take whatever comes. The cloaked pair pause. Then turn to David. We're taking him both, Lily and the young un, they say. But don't you fret. The good Lord's got an eye for mercy. All that praying you did at the chapel. All the good you've sown. It's piled up blessings for your wife and boy. They'll get a fresh start next time around. A good life, thanks to you. With that, they vanish. Lily's form and the shadow along with them. Leaving the room still as a graveyard. David takes a shaky breath. Knowing Lily and the baby are safe. Headed for something better. He grabs his old clothes.
Trudges back to Mercy Chapel.
And finds the head preacher waiting. Looks like you've shed your burdens, son, the man says. Reading it in David's face. Lily and the little one, they're gone for good now. I'm here to stay. Praying for folks and spreading kindness. Hoping the world finds a little more love. The preacher nods. Blessed be, welcome home. From then on, David's all in.
Living for the chapel.
Sharing goodness wherever he goes. Word spreads round Creekmouth and beyond. He's the fella who'll lend a hand. No questions asked. Sure, he delayed saving Lily to help that old-timer. And it cost him dear. But that one good deed stacked up grace for his family. Folks say that's how it works. You do right. And even if it don't pay off for you.
It mich just blesse ohnes you laugh down the line. A long game verse playing.
Rooted deep in the heart of these hills. And there you have it, folks. David Lee's story, done and dusted. Hope it hooked you good. Stick around, 'cause next up, I've got another yarn to spin.
An old settler's tale called The Priviman and the Black Dog.
It's a wild one from Virginia's Phoenix Hollow. Full of twists you won't see coming. Drop a holler below if you liked this. And I'll see you for the next round. Alright folks, here we go with story number 2.
An old settler's yarn from Phoenix Hollow. Down in Virginia's Tazewell County. Back in colonial times. They call it The Priviman and the Black Dog. A tale about a fella who let good fortune go sour.
And the strange turns that followed. Buckle up, 'cause this one's got some bite. Our story kicks off with a merchant named Walter King.
A man hot looked into a tidy little die business.
Thanks to the stashes folks left behind when they passed. Walter's living easy in Phoenix Hollow. Never fretting over much. He don't lift a finger round the house. Leaves all that to his wife, Sarah. She came from nothing. Born to a dirt-poor family. But her looks caught Walter's eye. And he chased her, till she said yes. Poor folks grow up quick. And Sarah's no exception. She's been through the ringer since she was a kid.
Now, married to Walter.
She's running the whole show. Inside the house and out. Keeping their dye shop humming while he kicks back. They've got a boy, Jimmy King. A towhead little scamp who's the apple of their eye. For a spell, it's a picture-perfect life. Walter's got his coin.
Sarah's got hergrit.
And Jimmy's got a roof and a full belly. But trouble's brewing under the surface. You know how the saying goes. Easy money breeds wild notions. Walter's purse gets fatter. And pretty soon,
he ain't content with a quiet life no more.
He starts itching for something new. Something flashy to shake things up. Before long, Walter falls in with a rough crowd. A pack of good-for-nothings who live for late nights and trouble. He's out till the roosters crow. Stumbling home reeking of whiskey. Slurring nonsense that'd make a sailor blush. Sarah's at her wit's end. Every time he heads for the door, she tries to block him. Walter, stay put tonight, she pleads. The shop's swamped. You could pitch in for once. He scowls, brushing her off.
The shop's your business. Ivy got my own affairs.
What's a man supposed to do? Sit home like a henpecked fool. He shoves past her and storms out, leaving Sarah staring at his back, wishing he'd see sense before it's too late. At first, Sarah figures he'll burn out. A few wild weeks, and he'll come crawling back. But it gets worse. He used to at least drag himself home.
No matter how late.
Now, he's gone for days. That's the last straw. She drops everything. Marches out into Phoenix Hollow. And after half a day of hunting, finds him holed up in a gambling den. Cards flying, coins clinking. And Walter in the thick of it. She storms through the crowd, grabs his sleeve, and yanks him toward the door. Folks snickering and whooping behind him. Walter's red-faced, waving her off like she's a pesky fly. Sarah's had enough. You loaf around all day, I don't say a word. You drink till you're pickled, I let it slide. But this?
Gambling our lives away? Get home now.
He's stunned. Sarah's never lit into him like this. But instead of backing down, he's mad she's shamed him in front of his cronies. You're a woman. Who are you to chew me out? He roars.
The King family's sitting pretty.
I could lose $10 or 10,000. And we'd still be fine. The room gasps. Then cheers him on. Their eyes glinting with greed. Sarah sees right through those gamblers. They're sharks smelling blood. She tries to drag Walter out. But he's done talking. He kicks her to the dirt, cussing her out for all to hear. Her heart cracks wide open. She picks herself up, tears streaming, and stumbles home alone. Back at the house, she starts packing, ready to leave Walter for good. But then Jimmy toddles in, big eyes looking up at her, and she softens. She can't abandon the boy. She stays, praying Walter'll come to his senses. A week drags by. No Walter. Sarah throws herself into the dye shop, trying to forget the husband who ain't worth a dime. But that night,
she steps through the door,
and freezes.
A gang of strangers is ransacking the place.
At their feet,
Walter's sprawled out,
beat to a pulp. They spot her and snarl. You Walter King's wife? He gambled away everything. Hand over the shop, or we finish him off. Sarah's shaking. But before she can answer, they start wailing on Walter again, his groans echoing through the house. Sarah can't watch him die. She caves. Take it, she whispers.
The tooks stop.
Pull out a paper with Walter's scrawl. He'd signed it all away in a haze of cards and liquor. Next day, the king's whole world's gone. Shop, savings, everything. Stripped clean. Leaving him with nothing but a crumbling shack their folks built years back. Walter slinks home, finally seeing what he's done.
Toa shamet to face Sarah and Jimmy. He waits till she's out.
Then throws himself down the well. Gone for good.
Sarah's a wreck. All that loss piles up.
And she snaps.
One night.
She grabs Jimmy.
Still so small.
And jumps into the river. Ready to end it together. But fate's got other plans.
Viljaga spot, M.
Fish Jimmy out alive. Sarah don't make it. She's lost to the current.
Little Jimmy's an orphan now.
Poor as dirt. But kind folks in Phoenix Hollow toss him scraps, keeping him from starving in that lonely shack. 10 years fly by in a blink. Jimmy King's no little tyke no more. He's grown into a strapping young man. toughened up by a hard life in that rickety shack, with no folks to lean on. He's tagged along with the village hunters, learning the ropes of tracking and trapping in the wild hills. It's enough to keep his belly full. A deer here, a rabbit there. And he's carved out a living from the land. Even with all he's lost, Jimmy's turned out decent. Folks round Phoenix Hollow can't say enough good about him. Always ready with a nod and a helping hand.
One crisp morning, Jimmy heads up the ridge to hunt.
Got his traps set and his musket slung over his shoulder. But as he's stalking through the trees, a holler cuts through the quiet. Someone's yelling for help, loud and desperate. He bolts toward the sound. And there, tangled in a net strung up in a tree, is a gal thrashing like a caught fox.
Jimmy scoot sinks.
That's his trap. Set yesterday to snag a deer. And now it's nabbed a person instead. He scrambles over, calling, "Hold on, I'm coming." The gal spots him and pipes up. "Help me, mister. I was just passing through. And next thing I know, I'm stuck up here. Get me down, please." Jimmy's already blushing.
"Sorry, Mom."
"That's my trap you're in. Meant it for game, not folks. I'll have you out in a jiffy." He pulls out his knife, slices the ropes careful-like, and eases her down to the ground. She dusts herself off, then turns on him with a spark in her eye. "So you're the one who strung me up? I ought to give you a piece of my mind." Jimmy's stammering apologies. Hands up like he's surrendering. But she don't stay mad long. She winces and nearly topples over, grabbing her ankle. He rushes to steady her, helps her sit on a log, and takes a look. She's twisted her foot bad in that fall. "Ma'am, this is my fault," he says. "I'll make it right. You're hurt 'cause of me." She huffs, ready to sass him some more, but then figures. If he leaves her here, she's stuck in the woods with no way out. "Fine," she grumbles, nodding for him to go on. "All right then," Jimmy says. "Come back to my place. Rest up till you're on your feet. I'll fetch the doc to patch you up proper." She agrees, and he hoists her onto his back, carrying her down the ridge to his little shack. Once they're there, he sends for the town sawbones, who checks her over and says, "Couple days with some herbs and rest. She'll be good as new. Just keep her off that ankle." Jimmy sees the doc out, then turns to her. "Where's your kin, ma'am? I'll let him know you're here so they don't fret." She waves him off quick. "No, don't you dare tell my folks. I slipped out on my own. If they find me, they'll drag me back faster and you can blink." Jimmy's eyebrows shoot up. "Well, shoot. If that's the case, stay here till you're healed up. No sense rushing off." She nods, settling in without a fuss. And Jimmy figures he's got a guest for a spell. Might as well make the best of it. Over the next few days, Jimmy's out hunting like usual. Brings back game and cooks it up. Simmering stews to keep her strength up. She's laid up in his shack. But she ain't quiet. Starts spinning tales about her life. Each one wilder than the last. And Jimmy's hooked. Hanging on every word. A week rolls by. And they're getting thick as thieves. Laughing, swapping stories. A spark kindling between them. She finally lets slip her name. Lizzie Tate. The prized gal of the Tate family from Fincastle. A good ways off from Phoenix Hollow. By now, Lizzie's hobbling around fine. Ankles healed up good. Jimmy's worried she's been gone too long. Her folks must be tearing their hair out. "Reckon you oughta head home," he says. "Don't want 'em thinking you're lost for good." Lizzie sighs, knowing he's right. 10 days is a stretch to be missing. "All right," she agrees. And the next morning, Jimmy hitches a horse and cart, ready to take her back to Fincastle. A half-day's ride over rough trails. But he's determined to see her safe. They rattle along in the cart. Lizzie quiet for once. Till they roll into Fincastle. Jimmy hops down to help her out. But she grabs his arm. "Jimmy," she says, "you gonna come see me after this?" He's caught off guard, glancing at the big Tate house. Fancy as all get out. Making him feel small. These past days. Something's grown between em. A pull he can't name. Course I will, he says. If you want me to. She grins. Leans in quick. And plants a kiss on his cheek. Then hops down. Leaving him red-faced and tongue-tied. Jimmy and Lizzie roll up to the Tate place in Fincastle. Him still flustered from that kiss. Her hopping off the cart like nothing happened. They head toward the big house together. All tall windows and painted wood. Fancy enough to make Jimmy's shack look like a lean-to. A servant spots Lizzie from the porch and hollers, "Miss Lizzie's back." Then bolts inside to spread the word. In no time flat, a crowd spills out the front door, led by a gray-haired man in fine threads.
Liziespa, Squire Tate.
Looking fit to burst with relief. Squire Tate rushes over, checking Lizzie head to toe like she might be busted up. Seeing her in one piece, he lets out a breath he's been holding for days. Then his eyes land on Jimmy, standing there in his patched-up coat. And he freezes. Who's this scruffy fella with his girl? Lizzie jumps in quick. Pa, this here's Jimmy. He's the one who saved me. I'd still be lost in the woods if it weren't for him. She starts singing Jimmy's praises, laying it on thick about how he nursed her back to health. Squire Tate listens, nodding slow. And Jimmy can tell the old man's sharp. He's already clocked the way Lizzie's looking at him. But Jimmy's rough edges don't sit right with the squire. A boy from nowhere ain't what he pictured for his pride and joy. Still, he puts on a smile and says, "Well, Jimmy, if you pulled my Lizzie out of a scrape, you're a friend to the Tates. We owe you proper." He snaps his fingers, and a servant hauls out a tray piled with silver coins. Must be $100 worth. Enough to set Jimmy up for years. Squire's figuring he'll buy Jimmy off. Send him packing with a fat purse and call it square. But Jimmy shakes his head. "Squire Tate, I appreciate it, but I can't take your money. I'm part to blame. She got hurt in my trap to begin with. Keep it, I don't deserve a reward." The old man's jaw tightens. Here's a poor kid turning down a fortune, and it throws him for a loop. He squints at Jimmy, grudgingly impressed. But it don't change the facts. No amount of grit makes this boy a match for his Lizzie. "All right," Squire Tate says. "If you won't take the silver, least you can do is stay the night. It's late, rest up. And my man'll see you home tomorrow." Jimmy glances at the darkening sky. No arguing with that. So he nods and follows them inside. The Tate place is a world apart from his shack. Soft beds, warm food, and more rooms than he can count. But come nightfall, there's a soft knock at his door. Lizzie slips in, eyes wide and worried, looking like she's got something big to spill. "Jimmy," she whispers, "I wanna marry you." He near chokes on his own spit. She's laying it out plain as day. "I'd be a fool to say no," he manages. "But what's the rush all of a sudden?" She grabs his hands, voice shaking. "If we don't do this now, Pa's fixing to wed me off next month. Some rich fella from the Lee family. I won't have it, I want you." Jimmy's head spins. She's serious as a heart attack. "All right," he says. "Tomorrow, I'll ask your pa proper." They hatch a plan. Hearts racing. And part ways till morning.
Come sunrise.
Jimmy and Lizzie march into the big parlor, where Squire Tate's sipping coffee like a king. Before the old man can open his mouth, Jimmy steps up, hat in hand. "Squire Tate, I've come to ask for Lizzie's hand. We've taken a shine to each other. Fell for her out there in the woods. And I swear I'll look after her right. Please, sir, let us have your blessing." The squire's face goes dark. This ain't what he expected from the scrappy hunter boy. Squire Tate's coffee cup clatters to the table. His face twists like he's bit into a sour apple. "You've got some nerve, boy," he snaps. "Sure, you pulled Lizzie out of a jam. But that don't make you fit to wed her. You're a nobody. I'd sooner see her with a gentleman than a ragtag like you. Best you forget this nonsense and clear out." Lizzie jumps in.
Pa, I'm marrying Jimmy.
"Nobody else. I won't be traded off like a prize cow." The squire slams a fist down. "Quiet, girl. You don't know what's good for you. Get back to your room. He calls the servants. And they haul Lizzie off, kicking and hollering, while Jimmy stands there, helpless. Squire Tate turns to Jimmy, eyes hard as flint. You've overstayed your welcome, son. Get gone. And if you know what's good for you, you won't stir up trouble. Push me, and I won't be polite about it. A couple of burly hands step forward, looking ready to toss him out on his ear.
Jimmy scoot chance.
He glances at the shut door where Lizzie disappeared, feeling smaller than ever. What chance does a fellow like him have against all this? He turns and trudges out, the Tate house slamming shut behind him like a jail cell. Weeks drag by. A whole month of Jimmy moping back in Phoenix Hollow. He's hunting, selling pelts. But his mind's stuck on Lizzie. Her face, her laugh, haunting him every step. He's powerless. And it's eating him alive. No way to fight a man like Squire Tate. He's out checking traps one day, lost in his head, when the black dog he keeps at the shack starts going wild, barking and tearing around like it's possessed. Jimmy frowns. Something's up. Right then, the shack door bangs open. Jimmy spins around. And there she is. Lizzie, standing in the moonlight, out of breath and wild-eyed. He rubs his eyes, half thinking he's dreaming, but she runs straight into his arms. And they hold on tight, like letting go might break him. I ran off, she pants. Pa was fixing to marry me to that Lee fella tomorrow. I couldn't do it. I had to get to you. Jimmy's heart's pounding. They're done waiting. We're tying the knot tonight, he says. And she nods fierce, tears mixing with a grin. No time for fuss. They light a candle in the shack, stand before it, and swear their vows to each other. Just them and the night as witnesses. It ain't fancy. No preacher or kin. But it's real. They're husband and wife now. Sealed with a kiss and a promise. They collapse into each other's arms, crying and laughing all at once. This love's been a fight. And they've won it their way. Jimmy steps outside to fetch water, still dizzy with joy, when that black dog starts up again, howling like the devil's on its tail. Jimmy edges closer, and the dog's going berserk, eyes wide, tears streaming down its shaggy face. He freezes. That ain't normal. This old mutt's been with him 10 years. Ever since he was a kid. And it's always had a knack for sniffing out trouble. He unchains it, and the dog bolts out the yard, Jimmy hot on its heels. It leads him down the trail, stopping sharp at a crossroads. And there, in the dark, Jimmy spots Squire Tate and a posse, lanterns swinging, searching house to house. They're after Lizzie. And they're close. Jimmy sprints back to the shack, bursting in with, "They're coming, your pa's hunting you down." Lizzie don't hesitate. They grab what they can carry, a blanket, some bread, and slip out into the night, the black dog trotting ahead like a guide. They don't stop till dawn, putting miles between them and Phoenix Hollow. No looking back. Just the two of them and their scrappy mutt, running for a new life. Squire Tate's men scour the village. But they're too late. The newlyweds are gone with the wind. Years roll on. Jimmy and Lizzie settle far off, scratching out a living wherever they land. Lizzie bears him 2 kids, a boy and a girl. Tough little rascals with their ma's fire. Time softens old wounds. And one day, they figure it safe to head back to Fincastle. Squire Tate's mellowed by then. He sees his grandkids' bright eyes, and his heart gives in. Ain't no title or money worth more than that, he reckons. So the Kings move in with the Tates. And from then on, they're one big, rowdy family. Happy at last. The hard times behind them. And that's the end of the Privy Man and the Black Dog, folks. Hope it kept you on the edge of your seat. Jimmy's a fella who beat the odds. And that much sure earned its keep. If you liked this one, give me a shout down below. Maybe share it with a friend or two. Thanks for listening. And I'll catch you next time with another yarn from the Hollows.